flooded him with a ton of emotion.
Yeah. Do you think would he have ever thought that would happen?
No.
Yeah.
No. Neither my mother.
When did it kind of start to, when did you hear some rumblings that it might happen?
So about 3 years ago, his best friend in life, Dan Dalton,
Okay.
and who happened to be my uncle,
Okay.
brought it up, as only my uncle could have done publicly, put it, social media and things like that. And then Dave Selkirk, one of his childhood friends, took it to the proper people in town of what steps do we need to take to make this happen. And then, as only the good Lord can do, Steve Cheeseman became a councilman, and Steve took the ball and ran with it. And from that point on, it happened. And I think it was 2 years ago when they were trying to get it pushed through the council. They asked me to write up stuff and be a part of that, and I didn't feel it was, and neither did my sisters, that it was the proper place for us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what was I going to say? No.
Yeah, right.
No, Dad wouldn't want that.
Uh-huh.
No, it was, and I think that's what makes it special to me, is that me and my sisters and my mom had really nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
It was about the energy and the people that thought this needed to happen.
Yeah. I was going to ask, now that you've had a couple months, your mom and sister and family, what's kind of, what's your reaction to this happening finally?
I'm going to say it again. It's humbling. When you drive around town and you see 3 to 4 bridges named after people, and 2 of them, or you might see a building after somebody, it makes me step back, because on July 21st, even though it's officially Jimmy Isaacson Field, on July 21st.
Yeah. Yeah, the signs go up, the speeches are made. I mean, it hits home there,
It's
right?
going to be, it's good. I didn't think I'd get emotional, because I haven't since you and I last talked.
Yeah.
It's going to be, I really don't know how to explain it, because I haven't been through it. It's an honor.
Yeah. Kind of talk about the H.T. Custer Park and the significance of having that specific park bear your dad's name. I mean, kind of tell the story about, you grew up there and he lived there.
He built a house in dead center.
Yeah.
And he grew up the majority of his formative years, from age 13 on, basically in right field. My grandmother almost at one time owned basically the whole block behind them, and the property in which the house I grew up in and my mother still lives today. That's where it all happened.
Mm-hmm.
For my father. That's where Bill Isaacson adopted him. That's where he played Legion baseball. That's where he played for high-low for senior Babe Ruth. That's where he started coaching with Sam Andre. That's where he coached the Pioneers. That's where he coached American Legion baseball. That's where the 1971 state baseball championship was. It all was there, and then he raised his family there.
Right.
And the memories that come flooding back over me. About a month ago, I was with my youngest sister, Amy, down in Missouri, and the memories that she brought up that I couldn't remember, it creates a lot of emotion, and it's just where that was our life. I mean, the only other place we went in the summer was high-low. And as we got older, our bikes took us farther.
Yeah.
And I know that kids today wouldn't understand that, but that's just where it was. I mean, that's where the pickup games were, and that's where, I mean, hell, Grandpa Isaacson, the man that adopted my father, he took care of the field after he retired from the railroad. I mean, it was all there, and wonderful time and a wonderful place to grow up.
What's your mom think of this? I mean, she's going to be there, like looking out every morning when she opens the window. She's going to see, well, there's Jim Isaacson Field.
Well, to quote her, she wants the damn sign to look good. Okay. I think she puts it in perspective of all the years, all the time, all the hours, all the non-traditional things that brought traditional things to us, meaning me and Jody and Amy, that other families didn't get or be a part of. It all goes full circle because, in the summer we didn't have vacation. Mm-hmm. Vacation was going to Moline.
Yeah.
And as the years went on, that changed some, but I'm going to say it one more time. It's humbling, but she appreciates Galesburg and what they thought of my father.
Okay. Kind of going way back, I'm curious how good of an athlete was your dad? I know he was on the 57 undefeated football team.
He was.
He played baseball. How good of an athlete was he?
Jimmy could run.
Mm-hmm.
And Amy was the only one to get that trait. He was a dirtbag. It's the term I use with our guys.
Yeah.
He was the first one to get dirty. He was the first one in the ballpark. He was the last one to leave. He loved the game, and athletically, defensively, over the years talking to him, which he was a very, very laid back guy that hardly would ever talk about himself.
Yeah.
But as the years went by, he said he was really, really, really good defensively. Mm-hmm. Played third on the 58 Legion team, the first team to make a state tournament. He said, I wasn't very good offensively, meaning there wasn't a lot of pop in his bat, but he found ways to get on base. He hit in the 2-hole and just created holy heck. So the big boys behind him, Doug Mills and Dave Cox, mm-hmm. and Ted Brewington, could drive him in, but he was always the one that was talking to some of his ex-teammates. I'm talking 50 years after. He was the one that kept everybody together. So I'm guessing that's what Sam saw, was his ability to pull everybody together, but yet let everybody be themselves. Mm-hmm. So hopefully I answered that question for you, Jay.
How did he get into coaching?
So as he was going through his apprenticeship to become a printer, in 1964, I believe, Sam needed an assistant with the Legion program and knew that Jimmy would be able to work his schedule in and mm-hmm. around what they're doing. And let's be honest, there was interest from my father as well, especially with a man without the college degree going on and coaching at Illinois or Quincy University or anything like that wasn't going to happen during that time. This was an opportunity for him to stay in the game. And one of the things that most people don't realize is that Jimmy and John Thiel were close. John was his linebackers coach when he was a sophomore, mm-hmm. and took a liking to Dad. And as Dad graduated high school and was starting to move on with life a little bit, and John was becoming John, he took my father under his wing a little bit, and I would assume probably helped Sam Andre say, hey, you need to give this kid a shot.
And we think of John Thiel with basketball, but he played minor league baseball.
He played minor league baseball, and I'll just get this on the board right now. because I don't know if it's going to be one of your questions or not. I'm not going to tell you that it was his favorite athlete, but the best player that he told me that he ever coached was his son Mark. That Mark was the best player that he had ever coached, which is saying something.
Yeah, right. So he didn't. Did he ever coach like Little League or Babe Ruth, or he just started out with Legion?
He started off with Legion. The Little League story is he missed when in 1954, 55, 54, I think, when they started Little League in Galesburg. He was 27 days too old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, as a 12-year-old. But his interest with the youth of this town, what a lot of people don't realize is that he is one of 5 on the original charter of the JFL League. He basically started the Junior Football League in Galesburg. And when it came to no vacations, well, once baseball was over, it was time to be over at JFL.
Yeah.
And the years that he spent on the football sidelines doing the chains was, 25 years maybe. He just loved it. And he loved the competition, and he loved the reaction of each athlete and how they handled that competition. That's what motivated him the most.
Okay. This is Jay Redfern. I'm talking to Jami Isaacson, longtime baseball coach and the son of legendary Jimmy Isaacson. So, Jimmy Ball. Let's talk about that. And describe what Jimmy Ball is and your dad's style of coaching.
Okay. Jimmy Ball is it's really small ball, but it goes deeper than that. It's the ability to understand when to take a pitch and when not to. I like to explain it. If you're the leadoff man and it's a 2-0 count and you know a fastball's coming right down the middle of the plate in the first inning, you're taking it. Because Jimmy Ball was always about getting the starting pitcher off the mound. And it was about getting people on base and being able to hit with 2 strikes and putting the ball on the ground when it meant the most. In other words, man on first and second, nobody out. We were going to drag bunt, and you were going to get it down. That's just how it was.
Yeah.
He loved the 3-run homer just as much as anybody else. But with the levels of baseball that he coached, he had teams. One at Knox with me and Chris Klein and Guy Goodman and Craig Lounsbury. We could mash. We could hit the ball out of the ballpark. So we didn't run as much. But because Jimmy could run when he was an athlete, he loved the running game. And I believe the very first Legion practice, yes, I'm pretty sure I'm right. The very first Legion practice, he gave the base running talk for 2 hours, and every athlete ran the bases the way he taught you. And it was a 4.5 step lead at first, what to look for and how to look for it from pitchers. I can remember we would do a pitcher's count on how long he would set before he would go to the plate. And Jimmy was ahead of his time on out of the pitcher's hand to the catcher. So he knew exactly who could run on fastballs, who could run on off-speed pitchers, who needed the help from the off-speed pitch. He just poured. He loved it. The whole beauty part of now the pitcher's going to the mound, and did you get a good jump, and is the catcher going to throw it on the bag, and the infield moving, and you could just see him brighten up.
Yeah.
He loved every single minute of it. And really, Jimmy Ball to me is making sure that you get the starting pitcher to 90 pitches, because usually about 75 to 90, especially at the younger levels, that's when the fastball starts coming up in the strike zone, and that's when success starts happening. And if you look at his 80s tournament runs, Rock Island, Canton, they had unbelievable teams. And Galesburg would win in the 6th, 7th inning every time, because we would take pitches. We wouldn't be as aggressive as you would think we should be. Mm-hmm. But by innings 5, 6, and 7, everything was off. Now you had to hit the fastball, and we went, and it was when it was working, man, it was beautiful.
Okay. So pitching, hitting, defense, base running are kind of the four pillars of baseball. And your dad was well rounded as a coach, but do you think he was especially good at teaching any one of those four facets, or was it totally balanced between the four?
So everybody calls my father a fundamentalist, which is true. I guess I'll break my own arm here. I'm probably more of a fundamentalist, meaning I'm going to coach you, Jay, on how to hit on the 5 major steps that will help make you successful. Jimmy was never that way. Jimmy taught the game on when to man on first and second, and the shortstop had to go right. You had to know, and he taught you, okay, the kid at the plate can run, so let's secure the out at second, or let's make the play at third and keep the double play in order. Let's not throw the ball away trying to turn something that we'll never be able to do. Jimmy was always coaching the player to be themselves. I have a sign in my office that says "Be you," and that's what he taught the best. Is okay, this is where the ball goes if this happens or that happens. He had an innate ability to explain all that, but he wanted you to react the way you were supposed to, not the way that you saw Willie Mays do it or the way that Albert Pujols did it, or you react the proper way, throw the ball the proper place, slide whatever the skill was,
Mm-hmm.
but and he beat it in you constantly without being redundant all the time. And I think that's what drawed so many young men to him, is that he knew the game up and down, and he was willing to give his knowledge to you as long as you took that knowledge and you made it become yours.
Yeah.
That's who he was.
Yeah. Speaking of drawing men, one of my friends and yours too, Jeff Gomer, who was a former pitcher, he'll talk about him. He talks about him all the time. But, he talks about not only he was a good baseball person, but how he was an excellent motivator and leader, and for him, a role model and father figure. And I'm sure Jeff's not alone. Kind of talk about that aspect of your dad's ability to deal with young athletes.
And that's the part that I'm very fortunate. I think I got a little bit of the ability to create a relationship, the ability to understand their home lives, the ability to help them through the good, the bad, and the ugly. He was very, very, very good at that, and without being intrusive. He always used the game to get to that point, because that's where they were and that's who he was. But what made Jimmy is Jimmy was consistent, and when Jimmy told you something, it happened, or he wouldn't say it. There were times where he was a man of very, very, very few words, and there were times where if he said it, he damn well meant it.
Yeah,
he damn well meant it.
I've heard that plenty of times. So, we've seen the games, but not everybody saw the practices. What were practices like with your dad?
Depending on what time of season was, the early Legion practices were hell. They were hell.
Yeah.
It was conditioning. It was fundamental work. I think it was 85. Yeah, it was 85, the year we were a game away from the state tournament. And we did not swing a bat for 5 practices, just because when high school season ended and Legion season began was like probably an 8-day period. Mm-hmm. And it was conditioning. I mean, I think I must have fielded 2,000 ground balls. I mean, I can remember me and Troy Jackson just being absolutely gassed. And mentally drained. And then once you got in the game, go play.
Yeah.
Go play. But he would always say, the running we're doing today helps in August when we're trying to get to the state tournament. because here's what happens: they get tired and we don't. And he's right.
Yeah. So he coached the Galesburg Pioneers of the Central Illinois Collegiate League from 72 through 75. I know you were pretty young then, but what do you remember about that? And how did he like coaching that caliber of player? You know, it's a little higher up than what
Yes.
he's used to with Legion and, you know,
Yes.
smaller division
Yes.
college baseball.
He loved the competitiveness, like I had mentioned earlier, of each individual athlete on how to, if you're a pitcher, get this guy out, or how am I going to be successful at the plate against this guy. I can remember we had a second baseman from Texas, and we were facing the Peoria Pacers, and the Peoria Pacers pitcher's name was Tim Stoddard, and the guy from Texas had struggled with him for a summer and somewhere in the spring, and Jimmy put him in a situation, rather than just going up there and just letting it just go up there and just hack. He said, here's what you do, son. If it's a strike, it's a strike, take it. If it's a ball, take it. But he said, look at this zone, and where are you successful? And I can't remember what the young man said. And he said, look for the ball there. Kid goes 2 for 5 that day. And that piece stuck with me because he narrowed it down. This young man was trying to cover the whole plate. He was trying to beat a first rounder just because I'm so competitive, I'm going to outcompete you. He said, no, compete smarter. Don't compete harder. Yeah. And he enjoyed and he loved that. He loved that you didn't have to give them everything because they're getting it at college or they're on their way or their instincts are a little bit higher, but he still gave it. And you don't have to take it. Yeah. But here's what I know about the game. You either want it or you don't.
I think, did they win the league championship in 74?
They did.
I mean, that's pretty big. Big deal in that league.
You're not a kidding. Yeah. And that's why he went back in 72. They were very average, as he would put it. Well, I'm just going to tell you, he said, well, we were horse shit. And, even though they weren't. Yeah. And he recruited all the players, and him and Ruth Pesey put together a ball club that could flat play. University of Texas, University of Illinois, Southern Cal. I mean, it was that ball club was really, really, really good. And the thing that I can remember the most as his son looking in, because I was so young, was he always grabbed a couple Galesburg guys that they had good Legion careers, they had good high school careers, but you knew their best baseball was ahead of them, and he would take them and say, be around these guys because your ability, you belong ability-wise, but you're not mentally prepared. And Peach Johnson was one of those athletes. Peach always had the ability, but somehow, some way, didn't work out in this, that, or the other. And then next thing you know, he's at Western Illinois University and pitching extremely well because of that Pioneer experience. He went from Sandburg to the Pioneers. He grew up. He took a lot from those guys. And the rest was history for Peach, as an example. Yeah.
What was it like to play for your dad as his son?
It was a pleasure because I was never a son. And I know you've probably heard that before. Yeah. He treated me like I was Bob Jackson, Joe Dennis, or Doug Dawson. Actually, Doug being his nephew might have been harder on Doug than he was on me. There were a lot of car talks after the game. So when I got my license, that was a good thing. But he never put me in a situation where, damn it, you should know this. And I can remember him telling me when he was a young coach, his first or second year with the Legion, and he lost his temper and pulled a young man from the field right in the middle of an inning, told him to sit his down and blah, 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 blah. And he said, I was so embarrassed for himself and for the young man that the only time he ever went to a parent, apologized, went to the player and apologized and said it'll never happen again. And it never did. It never did. Yes, there were moments where there were things that were said to me that weren't said to Joe Dennis or Troy Jackson or Arnold Gonzalez. But it was never in front of the team. And it was always what I call the car talk.
Yeah.
And he actually did more coaching that way with my son than he did with me. He allowed me to be me, which was a pleasure.
Finally, a question before we get to a rapid fire thing. So, what did your dad think of the modern game? What would he think of the way it's played now?
He hated it, and he's a diehard Cardinal fan.
Yeah.
His later years, I think he went 5 years with damn near not missing a Cardinal game on TV. But he did not enjoy it, and he would get excited when somebody would try to run against Yachty, and Yachty would throw him out by 5 feet. Probably that's too much, but would throw him out, and he said, the next guy that goes, he's probably going to be safe because Jimmy understood the odds. He didn't. Now baseball's turning a little bit. They're putting the ball on the ground a little bit more.
Yeah.
I can remember him. I won't say names, but I can remember him telling a James lover, a sabermetrics guy, well, you should never bunt with a man on first. And he said, well, if you ever make it, or if I ever make it to the major leagues, I won't, because goddamn it, we're doing it now.
Yeah. That's what I kind of thought you would say. So let's finish with the rapid fire round. I'm going to say something,
buddy.
And give me your first thought. So who's your professional sports hero growing up?
Mine?
Yeah.
Pete Rose.
Pete Rose. Okay.
Because he was a dirtbag. He played hard.
Okay.
Now, obviously, there's some things that come out since that childhood.
Yeah.
But yeah, Pete Rose was.
Okay. How about your Galesburg sports hero growing up?
Whew. That is a good one. But it would be Jamie Williamson.
Okay.
He grew up in the neighborhood and was a starting shortstop for the starting second baseman, 76, 77 teams, when Eric Doss got hurt, and that was my personal Galesburg hero.
Okay. Who's on your Mount Rushmore of greatest all-time players?
Willie Mays, may you rest in peace. Mike Schmidt, Hank Aaron, and probably Albert Pujols.
Okay. How about, other than your dad, who was the most influential coach that you've had in your career?
Gene Fisher.
Okay.
Gene was similar to Dad. And he probably knew I needed that. I mean, Gene would kick me in the butt every day, and I really, really appreciated that.
Okay. How about, which was more fun, playing baseball or coaching baseball?
Whew. Well, my problem was I always wanted to be a coach, which probably got in the way a little bit of how I play, to be honest with you. I'm going to have to say coaching it.
Okay. How about what was more nerve-wracking, playing a big game, coaching a big game, or watching your son play?
Watching my son.
Okay. I'm not surprised by that one. So how about, if you were the commissioner of Major League Baseball, what's one rule or thing you would change to improve the game?
Ooh. That's a good one. I would add 5 seconds to the pitch clock at the major league level. My son does it at the professional level, and there are times where the pitcher and or the hitter is rushed. Now, at Peyton's level of minor league baseball, the umpires are gung ho and they're going to bang you because you're not attached to the pitcher, or the pitcher's not ready. But I think the pitch clock is wonderful. But at the highest level, I would add a few seconds to the pitch clock.
Okay. And finally, you've been a coach for a long time. So what's the best piece of advice that you would give to parents of either baseball players or just athletes in general?
Number one, fall in love with the game and not everything around it. With travel ball being so prevalent in my sport today, everybody seems to want the reward rather than, and the reward might be, I'm on the Knox baseball team, or I got a scholarship to Quincy University, or I got drafted. If you're good enough and you persist long enough, they will find you. Play for the love of the game, and take everything you can from anybody who is giving their time to help you, because even if they're wrong, it's going to help you sometime, somewhere in life. I guarantee it.
Okay, and that's Jami Isaacson. And like so many others, I thought the world of your dad, and I'm thrilled this, he's getting this honor at HT. And I just wanted to tell you, I appreciate you joining to share some memories about Galesburg Mr. Baseball.
Thank you.